All right, welcome to Stampscapes Live. We'll try this again. I seem to have lost connection or something like that a minute ago. But this is a stamp sketch from earlier in the week demonstrating some different types of, I don't know, scenarios on how to use Nature's Set number 5. And I used some additional stamps in here. But I wanted to see this in a warm tone scene, and we'll put this scenic sentiment stamp right up here towards the end. So I'm not going to have too much room right up in this area for different types of imagery, but I thought I'd put like a sun, either a rise or sunset or there. It could be, either one, depending on, I don't know, whatever, how you look at it. But let's get that orb in here, that sun. And I'm going to do it in a rose pink, so pretty pale color. And I'm going to have that coming up right on the horizon. I'm going to mask off the horizon. It's the easiest masking assignment you'll ever have. And I think I'm going to have it a little bit below the horizon, so I'll have it coming up right in here. Well, maybe I'll put it right underneath that wave. All right, so I have a lot of the seaside cove showing just so I don't get a big gap in between this image and that horizon line down there. We're going to be filling in with some additional tone and everything like that anyway, so if we did get a gap, we can fill it in, but it's just kind of better just to have it inherently in there, not have to kind of fill in. Okay, so we have those touches like that. I should have got my other cloud strips or something like that, but I tell you what, I'm just going to use the top of this right here. I might get that orb, the sun part of it stamped in there again a couple times, but I'm going to have that the top portion of this area is going to be largely dark anyway, so it's not going to matter too much. But I'll try to obscure that little bit of that. I don't know, I guess it doesn't look like a circle because I'm not running it so far down in here getting that, because I don't want multiple suns or, something like that in my scene if it's going to represent Earth, so in which case it's not going to be like surfing on Mars or something like that, or I don't know, whatever, different galaxy. So we'll go with something like that, just to get a little bit of extra texture in here, just so I don't have to fill it in completely. Actually, that looks pretty decent. Let me go for a little bit extra, and that removes the need for me to go in and fill in a larger space just only with tone. It's just so much easier if we have a little bit of texture in there. This goes for any type of areas that you have a large area in there. If I have a large, something like a meadow or something like that, or water area or sky, if I just have some extra texturing in there, it really makes the coloring of that area just so much easier. Okay, I'm kind of tilting this a little bit and just kind of stamping this portion of it, so I'm not going like that, like completely flat, but all those different little striations in there are a really nice head start to my toning process. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go right into my wave a little bit. Like that, okay? So we got a little textures up there. It's a little bit busy, but it's going to be kind of mellowed out with the use of a lot of tone. I haven't decided on like a color scheme on this yet. In terms of my different areas, the sky will be warm tones up here. Down here, I'm kind of wondering if I should go kind of bluish tones, but then bring in some of that pink into it. I want to leave enough white in here too. Just so that I can use some white pigmenting, because that tends to be a nice kind of I don't know, it mellows out certain areas for the sake of, I don't know, kind of blending in kind of roughly applied shading and coloring that happens, you know, when I color. And it kind of removes the necessity for, you know, like really smooth, kind of like real accurate applications, okay? Hello, Sheila, Linda, Cynthia, how are you? Oh, I hope you're having a nice weekend. Hope that hand is coming around nicely, Linda, or it's getting some rust and I don't know what. Get some discomfort relief there with that. Okay, let's see. I'm thinking about tones like this. Well, this is the color that I used right on here. Let's use a little bit of the peach. And going with these two tones, it makes me think a little bit differently here. Let's do that. Okay, let's go with this aqua. And let's go with this split tone in here. Oh, we have the sand here too. Okay, so let's see. A lot of different zones of color here. So we'll have them, I'll try to harmonize them as much as possible. But this little sand area down here, I'll start off with something like this. This will be up in this, this area up top. These warmer pinks and things like that, a little bit of orangish tones with a little bit of yellow in here. And then we'll go kind of bluish gold in here. I guess I don't want it too hot up there, otherwise it would really influence the waves. The waves should be kind of the same color as the sky in many ways, but let's keep it a little bit different, but with some accents in here of those sky tones, maybe on the area right around the sun or something like that, or I'll have a trail of that color coming out that way. I don't know, I'll figure it out, or try to. All right, let's see. Hello, Pamela. Thanks for checking out the vids, Pamela. Glad you found the channel. It's a very niche channel. But hope you find it useful and like the creations here. This channel is not so much like your traditional instructional channel, but it's more kind of explorational, in terms of I don't know, the projects. I guess the presentation of the projects there. So, but glad to have you, and yeah, thanks so much for checking it out. All right, so we're going with a little bit of this base layer color down here. Now, here's the thing: when you don't really kind of have a really firm fix on your color scheme or how it's going to all come together, then going with really light tones is a really good way to go, because it's just kind of a hint of something. So you can go with, you can add in temperature, which this is like a warm temperature. This is desert sand here. Okay, now I'm bringing this up into my sky here because those colors will be, it'll have something in common with that area down below as an additional base layer color. And I say base layer because it's going to get buried in a lot of other layers, additional layers of color, okay? So sometimes you might have three different areas of, three different kind of color schemes going on here, but I want them to harmonize together, okay? So sometimes it could be from or based upon one common color used in all three areas, but if you use a really darker color or even a medium tone color, it's going to be a really dominant visual kind of thread going through all of them, and it's not as easy to manipulate a darker tone. But with the lightest tones like this, I mean, you can come over even this. This is going to be blue in here, but I can come in here with this really pale, warm tone. It'll influence those other colors, like cool colors that I'll be using in here, but it still influences the overall. So, in other words, just stick with a nice light color to begin with. And this, it goes for anything. It's pastels, colored pencils, anything like that. And it just kind of makes the, I don't know, kind of visual harmony of the piece really easy to achieve. And plus, you're getting a really nice layer. It does a lot of different things. It gets a nice base layer of color going in here in order to build your other colors on top of. And usually with the liquid media like that, if you get a good base layer going on here, and if you're working from lighter tones, working incrementally darker, the darker colors are the ones that you really want blended in, because if you come in with a hard application of some color, you know, and it's really distinct, you know, because it's dark on something really light, you know, it's really a lot easier to blend in because the page is a little bit moist. Okay, so glossy cardstock, dye-based ink type of process, just start light and build up a lot of tone. Okay, it's like glazing something. Okay, all right, so this kind of establishes a little bit of a lighting scheme. I've kind of hit it a little bit, you know, more up here and a little bit less down here. I want some white in this scene again, so I can add in those kind of foggy, misty touches like that. But things like that, it's almost like you don't even have to go really a lot darker, but, you know, on this one I probably will. We'll see. Okay. But I mean, it's already, you know, it's already looking fairly decent in terms of a, you know, kind of a, it's like a hint of a, you know, lighting scheme in here. And lighting, when you're coloring pieces, lighting just kind of happens by the retention of your lighter areas in here, maybe the white of the paper. So then instead of coloring the whole thing in, you leave areas that are a little bit lighter, okay, like that. And that becomes your lighting. So don't color in everything completely. And those areas, if you're working on a white piece of paper, that is, and you'll get your lighting at the same time as your coloring. Which is a pretty, you know, it seems, you know, that seems, you know, really, you know, pretty obvious. But a lot of people, when you're doing coloring of outline designs, we're coloring in whole spaces usually. You know, if it's an outline of something or it's segmented up, you know, it's like filling in different areas. I liken it to a lot of different types of coloring and stamping are with outline designs where you're coloring in the whole spaces. So it's like almost like stained glass or something like that. You know, which is its own technique, but you just use those same techniques, but you just kind of vary them a little bit. Instead of coloring in the whole thing in the sky, you're leaving areas lighter like that. And this is a pink right here, so I like to give it a darker perimeter. So it's going from darker to lighter like that. It's coming around pretty fast, isn't it? It's kind of coming around a little bit faster than I thought. The bruising is almost gone. Oh, wow. Keep those hands stretched out, Linda. A lot of hydration, joint care. And finger joints, arm joints. Okay, here's some brown, and let's add that right down in this space right here. Oh, you used to paint murals. Pamela, you're going to have, you know, if you do start doing some scenic stamping, you'll have a nice kind of concept of with murals. You'll have a nice concept of scale, and those types of image, relationships of imagery. Then murals, and interior murals or exterior or both. I had some classmates at school that went into murals. One of them was doing a lot of murals, and then she got into mosaics. So she does like really large scale mosaics. Yeah, her name is Maya Tavanati, but she was a classmate of mine at Long Beach State. But she's done some really large kind of exterior murals too. Okay, so here's a little bit of that brown. So going back to that idea of this transitioning tone type of thing. So we have lighter areas up here, darker areas up here. So it's going from dark to light. And right down here, it's going from dark to light like that. And the wave in here, it's going to kind of be that way a little bit, but we have this large structure like that. So I'm going to try to vary it a little bit. I'm going to try to put some tone underneath there a little bit and have some sunlight going through, and they call it the bowl section of a wave. If you're a surfer, the crest will have a little bit of a lighter area up there too. Yeah. Sheila just started, relatively speaking, scenic stamping, coming from other types of, a lot of other stamping though. But I was hoping, when I think of Sheila, I was like thinking, I hope you don't get, burnt out, or not burnt out, Sheila, but it's like you seemingly pick up like every type of technique and like genre, or I don't know, whatever. Yeah, techniques of scenic stamping like instantly. I don't you don't get bored of it. Some people that pick it up like so fast, it's like they move on, because they kind of master everything like really fast, like those photo stamping things. You really knew what to do with those photographs that you had, that you utilized in that photo stamping. Okay, here's some blue. This is a really pale blue right here. Okay, so I'm just starting to turn the this area into more of a cooler bluish toned. Hello, Aaron. Yeah, Hokusai. Yeah, Aaron, you recognized it, right? It's my kind of version of The Great Wave by Hokusai. It had what was it? It was like something versions, or something, so many views of Mount Fuji or something like that came out of, or it's like the 10 views of Fuji. I thought that was it, or something like that. I could be mistaken, but I thought that was it. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. If that's the artist you were thinking of, I would imagine that's who you were thinking of. I stylized it though. That Hokusai one's probably a woodblock print, I'm guessing. I'm not sure. Interior, okay, awesome. Yeah, that mural work is really something. Pamela, what media do you work in? Medium. Oh yeah, it's probably, yeah. Ron, I'm not really familiar with his other work, but I can probably guess what yeah, those other types of prints are probably based on what you're saying here. I think there's certain words that you can't say on YouTube, otherwise it's like it I don't know. I don't know, it removes the video or something like that. Which we usually don't have to, think about in terms of like a scenic stamping video here. All right. Just a little bit of a tint of blue in here. Okay. Aaron, where'd you go? Trompe-l'oeil type. Ah. Very cool. So if anyone needs the, like their ceiling of their living room or anything like that, done like the Sistine Chapel, contact Pamela. That's what my sister used to kind of joke about, She was going to have me come over and paint her ceiling, All right, let's see here. All right, so I'm kind of, trying to create a little bit of a shading effect underneath here. Now I can't get under certain areas of that lip without kind of bleeding out like that, so I'll just leave that for the, like pens or something like that. Acrylics, but IV. Oh, cool. Chico, okay. Now see, Aaron, when I was looking at state colleges, when I was in high school, Chico State, it was Long Beach State and Chico State. I think that were a couple of the better ones in terms of art. And I don't know about design with Chico, but that was another one of my kind of, I didn't really consider it too much. My teacher in high school was an illustration major at Chico State, so he went there. But that was, I think it was one of those that it was something like, in terms of the rating of certain art programs, it was based on something like the number of masters, I think, programs that they had for a certain major. So Chico was right up there. But I had a bunch of relatives, though, in the Los Angeles area. So I don't know. It was a little bit closer to home, to not real close, like 3 hours away, but, relatively speaking. But my neighbor now had a daughter that just graduated from Chico in art education. So, yeah. Hello, Caroline. Oh, they denied you. SDSU, gosh, it is really amazing for high school applicants, seniors or whatever, or just applicants now. San Diego State it's like the average GPA getting into that school. I think it was higher than 4.0. I thought it was like 4.1 or 4.2 or something like that now. I was pretty shocked. Like in high school, I think I was, I don't know. I maybe I could have got in. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not really. I don't think so though. If I was applying, like, I don't know, anytime in the last, I don't know, probably a few years, I'm guessing. Or at Long Beach State, it's probably like the GPA. The average GPA is like really high too. SAT scores, etc. Okay, acrylic paint, but I've done those crafts. I wish I could do that. Oh, a fractured hip. Oh no. Well, you can still do that to Sistine Chapel. You got to get on those one of those get like some scaffolding so you can lay on your back. Yeah. Not to joke about your hip, though. You know that's yeah, it's serious. But I hope that you heal quickly, and you're able to do whatever you want to do. Fractured hip, though. Wow. So it's a fractured hip. You don't have to have like a hip replacement then or anything like that. I take it because it's healing. I've known so many people that have had hip replacements, including my mom. My brother needs one too now. Okay, we're switching tones here. I'm just going with the blues again here. And I'm hitting kind of more of the shadow areas, where it's going to be a little bit darker. The darker I go, kind of the less coverage I do. And it's more of like specific areas like, the shadow areas. Okay, so right in here, you can see I went all the way down here with that salvia blue. We started off with the memento. So going to this one, you can see it's a little bit darker. I'm not going to go down quite as far as I did with the previous tone. Okay, so we're working value. We're working like range, value ranges within these places. So we're just going darker like that. And so we have that little range of values like that. And again, I can hit other areas a little bit better when I get to the pens or something like that. And I can't believe how much colleges are these days now, though. It went up a huge amount. I think the semester after I graduated, but a huge amount back then might have been like 20 or 30%. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, I don't know, tuition might have gone up. I graduated in 91. So, a really long time ago, but I don't know, it's gone up so much. I taught illustration briefly at this place called the Laguna College of Art and Design. I just taught there one semester. I was doing it as a favor for my old college professor, who was the head of the illustration department there. And I think their tuition, I don't know, their tuition at the time was like 12 or 14,000 a semester, which is a lot, in comparison to a public school at that time. But I think like even like state colleges or definitely UCs are like the same price as like, some of those private colleges from, I don't know, 20 some odd years ago, 20 years ago maybe. All right. Getting that kind of rendered there. So see, this form's kind of starting to take place, shape right now in there. I don't think I need to go too much darker in there. Okay. We need to render this down here a little bit more. The more strength that we put on this and the more kind of contrast in there, it'll push and pull the forms a little bit more though. So, and we'll just add some richness to the piece. So let's see here. Should we use the same one right here? Look at this. You can get with this really super high-tech toning tool from Costco. You get another whole toning device here. Let's see, which way should we go with this right here? All right, let's go kind of like, I don't know if I want to go, do I want to go that warm though? I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go this warm though. That's like really, really warm right there in terms of tone. I don't know, let's just take it really incrementally again, like I was mentioning. Um, let's see here. Let me take it more in pinks here. I know a couple of my pinks are kind of getting really, really old. Maybe all of them. All my, like, I have some pads here that are like 20, 30 years old. It's, I got it like, speaking of when I graduated like college, it's almost like some of these pads are like as old as that. See how much this one's like completely collapsed in terms of the material. This is like a, no, not that one. I was gonna say that one looks pretty old too, but I think I could still use this. It's not getting really crumbly here. Maybe I can't use it anymore. Here, let me see. Okay, yeah, I can get a little bit of an application with it here. But we'll kind of move this more into this tone right here. I'll try to get a little bit of a warm touch right down there, though. I want to pick up some acrylics. I was thinking about this. I mentioned this in another video. I said, I don't know if I want to get into like some, I go multimedia, but it's traditionally like crafting media for, card making, scenic stamping. But I think it's time maybe to at least to get like a cheap set of acrylics, because I want to get a little bit more volume in my marks with like some impasto touches or something like that. So like doing a like a fall setting or something like that. I want to get some of those thicker types of pen applications with like leaves on the ground or something like that, giving it a more kind of impressionistic type of look. I try that with, I try to do it as much as I can with dyes and, crafting inks and things like that. And those work, to an extent, pigment inks. But I think it's just, the acrylic, some paints, at least a couple of them. I think I'll just be able to achieve that so much easier with like a thicker medium. So I'm thinking about picking up like just a cheap set of, paints or something like that. I try to not go use things like too many things that I just don't think the average stamper will want to invest in terms of not only picking it up, the actual material, but learning how to use it. But I think if I just use it kind of minimally for certain types of touches, I think it'll be a good addition to whatever the stamper's repertoire. All right, so pinks like that. I should bring some of those hints down there like that into the water too, but I think I'll do that a little bit later. I'll kind of establish this a little bit more. Okay, so that's right there. Let's go with the, I tell you what, instead of moving into the like super warm tones, I think that's a little bit warm down. I think I'm gonna start moving it up here into like the violets instead. And I'll try that. Otis College. Yeah. That was one of those. I used to get that, those Otis. I think I sent away for that Otis at the time. I don't know. Is it still called Otis Parsons or is it just Otis now? Otis, was that in LA or was that in Pasadena? Otis, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's like a private art school. I don't know if it's a liberal arts school or if it was just strictly art, but that was one of those schools that, those art schools, you typically had to, you have to pass a portfolio review to get in there, but it was like always like a fantasy. I don't know of anyone that went there though. They might have been going there for more like fashion design, although that would be FIDM too. Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, I think. as the main one, but Otis might have been more of a like a design based school. 'Cause, yeah, I don't know of anyone that went there. I know people that went to Art Center, College of Design. That's a big one in terms of like illustration. Um, Long Beach State was really known for art, but maybe even more so for design, graphic design. And there was a little bit of crossover there. You know, you had to take a lot of design classes if you were an art major, and I guess design majors probably had to take some art classes. I don't know. I didn't see them in a lot of the classes though, like beginning drawing or something like that. I'm not sure. But all kind of like illustration majors had to take things like lettering and typography, stuff like that. Color theory. All right, there's that purple like that. Yeah, that purple was kind of nice, I think. Let's bring some of that purple into here too, I think. That violet tone. This is a really light violet tone, but cumulative, you know, when you add it to these other tones, even though it's like a really, you know, it's maybe a 30% dark, you know, color or something like that. When you add it over something that's 30%, it doesn't necessarily make it that 60% value of darkness, you know, light and dark. But it bumps it up a little bit. But what it also does is it kind of moves it into a little bit of a different tinge of, you know, color, just because the colors underneath are showing through it. You can even add this down here into this sandy area, just so that it's related to it a little bit, like that. But you can see it kind of, you can see I'm still retaining my light areas in here. You know, I'm not going in here with the violet. I mean, you can come in there with like a, you know, like a 2% version of it or something like that. But yeah, just a nice light addition. Let's try to make the perimeter a little bit darker for yeah, compositional reasons, to contain the image a little bit more, or a lot more. Too impacted. They give priority to the local community college, Mesa or whatever. You're kidding me, really? I didn't know they gave priority. I knew they gave places gave or seemed to give priority to like JC transfers and stuff like that. It seemed like that with all schools, state and UCs too. I don't know about all of them, like a Cal Poly or something like that. But huh, I didn't know there were specific ones though like that. Although I don't know, maybe I did know that, because I knew that Long Beach State with their art program, they wouldn't accept like beginning art classes from certain community colleges, but there were certain community colleges that were really good. Like for Long Beach State, there was this one place in Orange County called Orange Coast College, I think, or something like that. And that all of those classes could transfer to Long Beach State in terms of core level art program stuff. It's interesting thinking back to that time. That was so long ago for me. It doesn't seem like that long though sometimes. And then other times it seems like you know, like a world, you know, away. Okay, this is a really pretty bright blue right here. It's like a medium tone blue. This one right here. It's kind of like the Bahama blue, but Memento, but it's a little bit darker and thinner, richer of a tone in comparison. The Bahama's a little bit lighter in value and duller in terms of intensity. All right, let's see here. Okay, I'm trying to keep that light like that. Same thing right up here, like about like that. I'm trying to push this shadow right here quite a bit, like this, and make it really kind of stand out, like it's like light on the water type of thing. And I also want to kind of put this subject matter in the spotlight, so to speak, by making the area around them, quite a bit darker, like that, like a stage or something like that. Pamela's terrified of heights. Stamping while seated, yeah. Pamela's not going to be doing anyone's cathedral ceiling living room Sistine Chapel recreation. Sorry, guys. Okay, you're self-taught. That's cool. I watch certain channels, not too often, but when they come up on my feed, YouTube feed here, I watch those muralists. They're largely working with like spray cans, spray paints and things like that, exteriors. I don't know, maybe there was just like a couple of them that I've seen, but it's pretty fun watching those ones. They're usually up on some sort of crane or something like that. Okay, I think this color here is orchid. That's pretty nice right there, huh? I didn't think that would really influence it too much because it's kind of light. But I think, can you see the difference between like over here and over here? It's a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit deeper of the same kind of tone. Well, I don't know. That looks pretty good. So we're applying this right in here, getting it nice and rich with the orchid, and then we'll, completely cover it up and bury it. Okay, let's get a little bit of this color into these other areas, okay? So I'm going to go like this. And I don't know if you can see that right down there, but it brings a little bit of that color down in here. And we can do that the same thing, like right around in here, maybe. You can see more of the pure orchid where I go into like the white areas, okay? But again, I don't want to tone it all out because I want to do other things on in these white areas with the white pigment ink. So if I take out all the white, that white pigment ink kind of touch kind of looks a little bit awkward. Okay, now see right here, you're bringing in those little touches right here. So in theory, this color of the sky is kind of, it's reflecting off of our different surfaces here, sand, water, right in there, okay? All right, let's see here. I think there's certain colors that I just don't have anymore. I'm trying to remember. Usually you just use, just try to maximize whatever you have. But I think, yeah, my pale violet I haven't had for a while because the pad just completely disintegrated and I'd probably toss the pad. Okay, now this one's really disintegrating too. I need to just I'm using these. I use my stuff until it just can't be used anymore typically, but it's definitely time. So Marvy stopped making pads like this, so I'll try out some of the, maybe the Catherine Pooler ones, or I'll get some additional Memento inks or something like that. Yeah, Pam. Yeah, so you've been using acrylics. So the one thing about inks that'll be a little bit different, if you haven't used inks before, it's the differences in opacities. So the acrylics are going to be, I mean, unless you're doing them in real washy types of applications or something like that, it's just it's experienced more of the, like, dyes work by staining surfaces, so, and they're transparent too, so there'll be that kind of aspect of it. that'll be a little bit different. So what we're doing here is I'm just glazing. So if you've ever done any things with, well, in certain types of acrylics too, you work from thin to thick, right? You know, and that's kind of the general concept with like things like oil paints. So I'm working with really thin applications here, but I'll get into, you know, maybe some Dr. Martens here. I don't know if the alcohol inks are a little bit thicker. I guess maybe are they thicker than water? I don't know. They would, alcohol floats, right? I don't know. They're both the same, but I'll use some pigment ink on here too. So it's moving into like a thicker application of media and, you know, a little bit more opaque. But I use those kind of minimally. But that's where, you know, I thought maybe, you know, for certain types of things like cherry blossoms or something like that, getting, I don't have a really good pink right here. Even the acrylic paint pens, they make these acrylic paint pens a little bit thinner just so they don't dry up and, you know, clog up your pens. So they make them thinner so they're not as opaque as I'd like. So I want to get some of that, those types of colors. I want to get like this color right here, maybe with a acrylic. And I think that might look kind of cool. You know, you can have like little cherry blossoms or something like that on rocks or on the water or in the trees too, and not have to apply so much of it trying to build up those color schemes. All right, adding some of this into my water again. So it's kind of, this one's kind of running through both areas. This violet here is typically a really dark one, but it's really dry. So it's giving me kind of a lighter application, which might be good because it's a lot easier to blend in like this when I'm working with such a dry application of it. This is the type of thing where a lot of people, when they start doing this, a lot of people keep their pads really, really juicy, or they're just not using their pads as much as I do, like a dye-based ink specifically. And so that when they start blending in, if they tap down or something like that with whatever applicator they're going, and then they go like this, it's like this big, thick slathering of ink, okay? Now, if I do that with this, it's like, that's like a 5%, and I'm pressing down hard, you know, which I'm not doing when I'm, you know, applying it on here. But see, if I go like that, and this is like super wet, that's going to be a lot harder to blend in like this, okay? So a lot of people think, oh my God, he makes it look so easy. It's just because they have like 10 times as much ink on here. So, you know, it's just better to kind of remove some of it, or just don't ink up, just kind of dab in there a little bit, blot off, and then to start to apply it where you can't really see the applications very easily unless you apply it in mass or something, you know, multiple applications like that, okay? So everything comes into focus a little bit slower and it's more controlled, okay? It's not like so much like the opposite of this type of sensibility would be like calligraphy or something like that, where it's like boom, boom, boom. And that's like that, you got to get it in one fell. You got to get it, you know, like instantly, you know. This is like the opposite, you know. It's like you have like, I don't know, 20 taps for it to like even like barely show up or anything like that. But 20 taps, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, it just takes a few seconds to do. Oh, yeah, yeah. So that's the thing about that, Pamela. So I'm always mentioning it to the viewers here too. In theory, with any color of ink that you have, you can't change the hue or the like the temperature of it or something like that individually, but you can apply it so that you can get any incarnation of any color of ink going from its full saturation all the way to white, right? And everything in between, just depending on how much you apply with it. Now, if I stamp out an image in that tone, you know, you're going to get that image unless you wipe some of the ink off of the image. But in any one of these, I can apply it in its full saturation, which is going to be its brightest tone, you know, something like that. Okay. But you can take that all the way to, you know, here, I'll go this way. You can go like this, so it's got variations of it all the way to white. And then when you apply it in lighter applications, what you're doing is you're changing the saturation of it. So you're changing the value of it from dark to light, but it's also going from bright to dull like that, just because the amount of it that's been applied. So it's really taken advantage of that aspect of the ink, you know, to really maximize your application of it. So here's this brown right here, but here I have a 50% version of this brown and a 20% version, 10, you know, 5%, whatever. Like that. And then, you know, in scenic stamping, it also represents lighting as well. So you get this, you know, really nice lighting scheme just by not coloring in everything uniformly. Okay. I guess a calligrapher does that by doing those trail off things or something like that too. You know, it's like thicker and then it's like lighter, lighter, lighter as they kind of whisk off or something like that. But, you know, they have to get it in that one, I don't know, whatever, the 2-second motion. Just one way to scenic stamp too. People do watercolors and all that type of thing as well, you know. All right, so let's see here. Let's try to add in a warmth right in here. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep that a little bit light though. This is what I've been kind of avoiding. I'm not really good at doing like this really pale spot color of something in a given area. It's typically like a moon or a sun or something like that, where it's not like the whole thing is like slattered underneath there with like rich, you know, sunset orange and gold and oranges or something like that. So, all right, let me see if I can take my own advice here. I'm going like this. I'm going to take some of that off like that, okay? And let me just lightly dab in here. And we'll get a little of that warmth like that. So it's just a really pale, dry, it's like dry brush application of this tone right here, or tone and temperature, I guess, like that. And here, I'm going to put a little bit in that sun, but I'm not going to color it out all the way. This is what some people do. And I wouldn't say that it's an error or something like that, but if you have an object and it's supposed to be kind of the light source, some people have like white in their scene or something like that. But then on the sun, what they do is they color it yellow because they're thinking, okay, I want that to be a warm sun. But what they've done is they've made the sun, which should be the brightest thing or the lightest thing in the scene, and now it's darker than a lot of the other areas in there, which it can be yellow, but you have to kind of darken up everything else at least as dark as the brightest source in order for it to represent a light source, okay? So it's better just to have a little touch in there and have a little bit of that white showing typically when we're working with, you know, on a white piece of paper like that. Otherwise, it just kind of gets, what you're doing is it gets pushed into the background and it's really hard to see as a light. It doesn't look like the light source of the scene anymore because it's darker than other areas or objects, okay? So right in here, if I made that completely yellow, anything lighter represents reflected light, okay? And those things would be the same color as that. Okay, so I'm leaving the white in there. You know, you can put a little, like I said, you can put a little tint of it or something like that. But I wouldn't go too dark with those yellows in that lighting condition, okay? Okay, but see this right here? I'm kind of just adding this in here. It's kind of adding that little bit of a glow. I'll try to go right up here too. Like that. And let's see if I can add in a little of this down here. I gotta be careful if I'm adding the yellow down in here. It's not necessarily going to be yellow if I add it over there. It's going to just make that blue green, which, you know, it could be. It just turns into a little bit of a warmer green. I mean, a warmer blue. Let me see if I can add it. I'll add a little bit down here on this sandy area too. But now this is like really, really dry, so I can get a really pale light application of it like that. And which I should do. That sand should be a little bit warmer. When you add that kind of warmth into something, it makes it a little bit more inviting looking, you know. Unless you want to make it look ominous, you know, don't come into the water, you know. Instead of, you know, we add a, you know, that shark fin out here or something like that from the Halloween sets. All right, see that kind of glow right happening right there? All right, let's see. Hello, Kathy. That large surfer to be sold separately. Oh, yeah. Jeannie knows her. Jeannie definitely knows her. You know your sets. You know your imagery. Okay, here's brown right here. I'm going to go up here. And I think I'm going to add some of that brown up there. I'm going to just kind of warm it up a little bit. Let me see. Here, let me use, here it is right here. My brown applicator. It's not going to make things brown up here, but I just want to make it a little bit richer looking and a little bit darker too. And then that brown, of course, kind of relates to the brown down here. It doesn't look brown because I have the pinks up here, but you're just giving it that common, I don't know, whatever common tone. Yeah, similar things I'd be doing if I was doing this. If this was on semi-gloss paper, I'd be doing applications of, you know, these same types of colors in colored pencil work. So you're trying to layer on here as well. All right. There we have that. What I'm trying to build up to is I want to come into this with black as well. So I want to get things as dark as I can with other colors first, because black is going to be a really dark color to use in here. And it should add a little bit of drama into the piece. Semi-gloss and glossy. I don't work on matte too much, Janet. If I was only going to do something like colored pencils, though, let's say, and not work with any other media, I would probably go with a matte cardstock, just so it would have a little bit more tooth. But my stamps are... most of them are real detailed, okay, so which means a lot of tone in them. A lot of these fine little dots, okay, and there's fine little areas that are condensed dots, okay, so that will stamp out. I mean, if you have a pretty smooth matte paper, those all stamp out, okay, but just in general, the more retention of media, surface retention of media, meaning the media stays on the surface more than getting absorbed into it, like with liquid media, like dye-based inks, okay? The more rich the surface can be as an end result. By the way, did I mention I'm going with the dark brown now? So the more coating you have on a paper, glossy, semi-gloss, it seals off the paper a little bit more, so you have more retention, in this case, of dye-based inks on the surface like that, which can lend itself to a richer type of surface. And, I mean, like movie posters, there's no movie posters or anything like that that use like matte paper. And it's because the impact of those inks that are used on there are retained on the surface on glossy. So it's a little bit more attention getting. But there's certain types of looks, like if you want a satin look or something like that, like on a book cover or something like that. I like those types of looks too. But just in terms of like all these glazes that are laid down on this one with dye-based inks like this, you'll get the best kind of end result by going with something that's not absorbing those inks as much as like a more porous type of surface. Prussian blue. Yeah. Is that? Let me try the Prussian blue here. This one's going to be really dark. I need to be really careful about this one because for some reason, the chemistry of the Prussian blue is a little bit thinner too. I noticed that. I've mentioned this before. I've mentioned this with other dark blues in other lines too. Blueprint. What's that? Blueprint sketch, is that what it's called in the distress inks? That thing seems to be like really, yeah, blueprint sketch. This blueprint right here, distress ink color, it seems to be really thin or something like that, so it really stains like quickly. Like if I get these inks on my fingers, it seems to, I don't know, absorb into my skin. I gotta, scrub it off a little bit more with like a pumice sponge or something like that to get it off my fingers. So I don't know if it's something with blues in general or what. I don't know. All right, so a little bit more tones underneath. It's really influencing this surface though. As you can see, it's really staining it. But I wanted to get it quite a bit darker than it is before black in here. Okay, let's go to black now. So we're going back to the same color that I stamped out all of my different imagery in. It still doesn't look dark enough for my black to go. Yeah, anyways, let's give it a shot here. I'll use the same little area of my paper towel that I just used my Prussian blue on, okay? But see that right there? See how much darker that is? So it kind of closes off that top portion a lot, like so, okay? And remember, this is kind of a dry application. If I'm just kind of tapping a little bit in here, and I'm staying in a little area, okay? So I've gone kind of, I don't know, it's like I'm just going like 1/8 of an inch into this page, and then after several passes like this, I'm using this now. It's like, or, I don't know, maybe I need to re-ink. That's like a 1% gray like that. Okay. See, like that? Now it's kind of creates that, stronger kind of, whatever cap of the composition like that. One of the things that should be said too is this getting kind of, as this inks are kind of drying on here, they're looking duller. All right, which happens if I use a lot of the any colors other than Marvy inks or in conjunction with Marvy inks. Marvy inks are a little bit brighter, but my Mementos, my Distress inks, and all that type of thing, you know, Ranger Industry inks, they dry a little bit duller. But if you just spray seal your pieces with a acrylic sealant, okay, it'll look much brighter. It'll look more akin to what the, you know, your piece looked like when those inks were freshly applied and still wet. Now, you know, I'm still working on this one, so certain areas are a little bit wetter, but like this area in here, it's kind of dried, a little bit duller looking. Okay, let's tone our wave here a little bit more. Okay. Right. I'm going to darken in this area quite a bit right here. I'm just using a paper towel. You can use like different like sponges, you know, whatever tools that you're, you know, comfortable with. You know, give them a try. But then, like I said, I'd really recommend trying to utilize, you know, your drier versions of them to get that really kind of extend the value range of all your different inks and to really maximize them by using those lighter applications of them. Okay, now right underneath my wave, what I'm doing is I'm kind of like adding a little touch like this, and see how that kind of matches up that, and I'm just doing a little whisk like that, so it's like kind of going like this, and it's going like this, not like this and then up, okay? So you do this little wispy thing like that. Whiskey? I don't know, whatever. See, that's you get kind of a nice little range of values like that. There's like smaller ones in here. You can kind of hit it like that. You kind of use, you know, like a little corner of that area like this. Or you can use your fingernail too. Sometimes I put that in there and I just trim my nails. So it's, but sometimes where your nail kind of punches through a little bit more, you can get a kind of a more whatever specific application of it like that. All right, we have that like that. So it's starting to kind of, I don't know, there's like a little bit more of a modeling of our shapes here. You know, they're kind of like casting, like our shadows are a little bit more defined now. Okay. Like that. I might be ready for the alcohol pens. Let's see. I seem to be getting a pretty good coverage with this black, though. In other words, I used the black a little bit more than I thought I would. Because I thought some areas were still a little bit too light. But I don't know. I guess it took care of that okay. All right, let's go in and add in some additional tones in here. Let me find some blue. I'm trying to find some colors that are kind of related to what I've already laid down in alcohol ink form. Here's some pink like that. Here's a violet. I don't know how much that'll need, but what we'll do here is we'll go in, and I'm just going to hit some of these lighter tones like this right here. I'll add them kind of in the darker areas, and just see if it's kind of livening up some areas. It's giving it a little bit of a stronger glow, I see now. So alcohol inks, I mean, it shouldn't merge or blend with the dye-based inks because alcohol and water, shouldn't mix. If you have like a freshly stamped image and it's still wet, or something like that, then we go in there and color with this. It might, smear it a little bit, but these images are all really dry. So I can come in here and I'm kind of largely, even with this really pale blue, I'm just kind of modeling my shadow areas a little bit more. Just where I couldn't get into those like real specific areas with a big old applicator, like that paper towel or, wadded up paper towel or something like that. But even if I can't see too much of this application right here, because it's just such a light color to begin with, it kind of puts down a layer of that alcohol in there. And then that's another layer that I can kind of blend my other maybe darker colors of alcohol into. Okay, so I have to go back and forth a little bit with this too. So here's a pretty kind of warm blue. It's similar to like this Memento or that light blue of the Marvy. And this tends to puddle up, so you can go back in with your, like lighter tones like this. Here's a little bit of a green, and you can blend back into your, thicker applications of alcohol ink, or use your blender pen and go and blend it out, especially on this glossy cardstock. All right, something like that. It's a lot richer down here. That was looking a little bit anemic down there. You don't want like an anemic area in your scenes. Like you can have like a big area, like this one's like all that sand area. When like up here, it's like so much richer. You kind of want to match it a little bit in terms of intensity. You can have like variations of it, like where it's a little bit duller and then brighter in other areas, but you don't want the whole thing dull. Otherwise it doesn't match. It's kind of like an intensity mismatch, I guess. Okay, here's pink like this. I'm just going to blend some of this in here like this. It's going to dry, and texturally it's going to kind of stand out, but I'm going to spray seal this and that'll unify it. But you can see where I've kind of added in that, or can you? I've added this all up here. I don't know, you can see that different area right from here to here, like right that line like that. So this alcohol ink puts on another like layer of a transparent hue, and you're just kind of layering down another layer of a. I don't know. I guess it's intensity a little bit, or yeah, intensity. It's a little bit richer like that. Let me see if I have a really, really dull yellow here. Let me see. I think I colored something black with this last. We can use some of this, and this can blend some of that out because it's really a light, warm tone. You can get in here where I was a little bit chicken to go in too close or too intense with the yellow. You can kind of add a little bit more in with your alcohol pens, especially if you have a really pale version of it. So see this like right in here, I can put a little of this warm tinge right in here. About like so. Right. Not blending in at all. Okay. Like that. See, I don't know if you can see that. It's just kind of, I put that on these little waves right here. Now this isn't Yupo paper where it's probably, you know, real malleable, like super malleable, but, you know, if you hit this, before it kind of dries too much, you can kind of blend those areas out like that. So, yeah, that's another thing about the glossy cardstock. Now, I mean, you can blend it out more. Like, say, if I had some lighter blues, I can lay down some of that in there. So you can do it on a. I don't know if you can do it on matte so much. I guess onto the matte, you'd really have to build up a lot of that alcohol in there, so that you've really kind of saturated the surface and pulp of the paper quite a bit. But okay, but see this right in here, I really want this section right in here to be nice and rich. Let's hit it with a violet like this too. Okay, and those little streaky areas down there are kind of harsh, so I'll come in here and I'll just kind of blend those out a little bit right at that transition area into the lighter area, like so. And then we have that. Okay. It's not perfect, but then, you know, that's what the white pigment ink is for, you know, so you just obscure all that. Okay, this is what's going up and right here. This is going to get mounted onto another piece right around here too, okay? So I don't need to do a whole lot up here. I don't know, I probably blended in a lot more color than I really needed to because it's going to get covered up anyway. But let's go in with our paint pens. And I'll use like a warm, kind of pale beige and a white one, okay? And we'll add some of that maybe on the crest of some of these waves. And I think I want to have some splashing kind of waves too. Maybe I'll use some of the Dr. Martens for that. White, opaque watercolor paint. Okay, let me see. Let me figure out where this should go. Put this on some of my wave peaks like this. So I couldn't avoid, you know, some of these areas in here just because, you know, it's just like this tiny little bit, but that's where I'm just able to come back in and add in these highlights back into the piece, okay? Now what I'm doing is that there's lighter areas on the wave design that I could see. Like if this area right here that's white, let's say I accidentally colored that all in, I can reclaim it just with some white, you know, like that, okay? Like, okay, so, well, it looks like I did go over with some tone. I thought that was white there, but it isn't. So it's just a little bit of color. So I'm just going back in. I don't know if you can see that. There's this white here now. So there's a little bit of a different change in values like that, where it's just too hard to kind of avoid it, or it's just so much easier to color in that area with some tone. But if you want to go back in and reclaim that lighter kind of area, you just don't, you know, we have these white paint pens, so it's so much easier to do that. All right, Linda, we'll see you. Thanks for checking it out. Have a great rest of evening. going to try to get this little crest of the wave nice and light. That, okay. This is where I wish these paint pens were a little bit more opaque. Sometimes it's good that they're not quite so opaque because, you know, some of those colors show through, so sometimes this blends in better as it moves a little bit more towards transparency as it dries. But sometimes I want these areas to be nice and light and white with, you know, with my marks on here. So it's like, I'm gonna have to put another layer down of it after it kind of dries and gets a little bit darker, you know, because it gets more see-through. And I guess maybe if there was one pen that was like really, really opaque and white, and then maybe another one, you know, other ones that weren't so, you know, kind of dries, a little bit more see-through. And maybe that would be a good combination, so you can use them kind of together. Okay, adding some of this little glistening kind of, you know, sparkles on my waves like that. Okay, that's kind of bringing the area to life a little bit with a little bit more contrast. Textural contrast, light contrast. And let's go with, here, let me do this right here. Okay, something like that. Let's bring a little bit more texture into the scene. I have a toothbrush here, and we have our Dr. Martens Bleed Proof White. You can probably use an acrylic paint for this too. The Bleed Proof White, though, it's really, really opaque and dries very quickly. So I have to mix it up a little bit. Or a lot of times if you don't use this, you have to add a little bit of water into here each time. You just want it like a thin, like a syrup consistency. You don't have to do the whole bottle either, just a little bit. I have that just in the tip of my toothbrush like this, and I'm squeegeeing out, or I don't know, whatever, squeezing out a lot of that off the tip right there because I don't need it like fully loaded up. And then let's put some splashing waves like in the background, okay? So let me see if I can get this aimed in the right spot. I'm just like a little, like a ½ inch from my paper right here. Like that. That's almost a little bit of a big one there. I don't want that. Like this down here. And let's put some of this up into our wave too. All right, so it gives a little bit of motion into the piece. Hey, you can have it coming off the crest of the wave too. I don't know. Sometimes I'm not good at this, like flickering it out that way, because sometimes I don't know which way this is going to splatter. But let's give it a shot. I don't know, just I know that wasn't really a that wasn't very targeted, like at all. I just put a little bit up there too. All right. Like that. And let me see if I can show you that splatter down here. Okay. That a little bit over here too. I tried to put some over here. I didn't want it on those like foreground reeds or something like that to show it, but I wanted just a little bit of that texturing down there. And you can see it, some of it like up this way. So, all right. So now that's kind of a sharp little addition of light, in the form of these little white specks like that. And now let's put in our, kind of lighting in the form of like this, fog and mist, like you might see at the beach, with all that churning water. And let's go like this. There was nothing like going surfing at like sunset or something like that. It was always so relaxing. I don't know if this wave would be relaxing, hardly, but those were always like really fun sessions, as we call them, surf sessions. All right, let me mask off some of my shoreline right here. And this area of light down here, I'll just make it a little bit lighter, but it's more of like a soft light that you're kind of introducing into the mix here by adding in this tone or lightness and haze, I guess, into the mix right there. So I don't know if you could see it right there, but it's a little bit more kind of hazy and soft looking. You see that right here? I mean, you can see that, there's a, difference between like the sand and the water right there. But this is going to create a little bit of a further kind of separation between the two areas like this. And again, it's just like adding color. This is adding light back into it, adding light back into the dark. Darker, but I just kind of add it really slowly and just kind of build it up like that. Better so you can see that little haze down there like that. So this is like crisp against something soft. Okay, and let's do this too. Let's add a little bit into our light source like that. Now white over like a light pink, it's not going to be like a huge difference or something like that, but I don't know if you can see it here, but it's like a little bit of a softer kind of glow right in there now after adding in a little bit of this white pigment ink back into it like that. These waves like this is like largely the same texture right throughout here, right? Okay, see these right here? But let's see this wave right here and this wave right here. Let's just put a little bit of a textural change in between that little distance right here. So I'll take this and I'll just, I'll put a little bit of this haze in between that wave and the other one like that. See that right in there? So it's like a little wave right here, and then it creates a little bit more distance, textural difference between that one. You can do all those types of things. You can kind of just add that in like so. You don't want to do it everywhere because then you're going to lose the contrast. But if you ever add too much, you can just easily go in and just wipe it right out, okay? This isn't drying so hard and fast that you can't just kind of manipulate it with ease, okay? Let me do this too. I'm going to put a little bit of, all that haze is down there, that little fog. I'm going to put this surfer in a little bit of this haze too, but I'll just do it around his legs like that. So it's like they're in that they're kind of a part of that soft lighting like that now. So integrates them a little bit more maybe. And let's do this too. One of my favorite things of surfing at sunset twilight was sometimes you see like the first star of the evening or something like that. Let me put a little bit of a brighter one like that, and then let me see, let me add a couple of these in here. I'll just further render one of them though. Okay, we have that. It's all the same texture up there, right? And then you just take a little Q-tip here and put a little bit of that white pigment ink on there. If that's dry enough, let me see if I can add a little bit of haze around that star. See, I'm just adding it very little at a time, so I'm not getting a big blob or anything. That, and then you have this little kind of glowing star up there like that. Every time I add something like that, it's like, okay, let's do that with a couple of these other little sparkly dots, you know, in here too. So I'll add I don't know, a couple of these down here as well. All right, I think that will do it. This one would be pretty cool too if we used like an actual little clear crystal or something like that. I haven't been using those lately. I should get back to that, but you had like a little clear crystal up there for like a little twinkly star, you know, so they can, when you move it around, it'll kind of twinkle. Or you can put in some, you know, possibly some like glitter pieces in here so that when you turn it, you know, it can kind of flash a little bit of that, a little bit more light in there, and that might be kind of cool. But I'll figure out this matting. This is going to go on here. I pre-stamped this one, and I figured I was going to put a gold mat around this one too, so this will match a little bit more, but this will go something like that right there. That has a gold perimeter, as I mentioned with the gold. That, but anyway, I thought this was a pretty decent quote from the Scenic Sentiment sets too. So anyway, that is the rendered card there. 3 different kind of like, you know, semi-different color schemes. You have this warmish, pinkish color scheme going up here. This one's the blue, and then this one's the brown tones right down here, okay? But you can see a little bit of that warmth down in here, and I used some of this brown up here. I don't know if you can see it. You can see a little bit more of it here. But then you get some of this pink in here, right? So even if you have like, you know, whatever number of distinct color themes within a piece, the thing that I typically do is I intermingle maybe some of the lighter tones from those different areas of color or colored objects, and I bring them into these other areas like that. So some of this yellow is like, you know, right in here a little bit too, just so they're not like completely unrelated in terms of colors, okay? But that being said, though, when I see pieces like posted to Facebook or something like that, and there are really distinct color changes and schemes going on in one scene, but just everything is like completely different. A lot of times, I love those looks on those ones. It's like, it's just like a pure color scheme, you know, within one. You know? So I think to myself a lot of times, I need to try that sometimes, but I don't know. I have to intermingle all these, things in terms of how I color these things a lot. So anyway, yeah, so you can do it all kinds of different ways. There's a lot of different ways to do it. We were talking about like woodblock prints earlier, and those things were often, very distinctive. Different color schemes going across, the different objects in there. They would print them out a different way. So, that's just another way to work. I think I tend to do it, in a way that's possibly the easiest in terms of integration, though, So it's probably why I do it. I don't know. I have no idea. That's what we learned in school. All right. Anyway, hope you like the card. I'll get this formatted and carded off and finished off. A little bit of matting and stuff like that. I'm going to spray seal this, and hopefully the intensities, especially like in here, are going to get jacked up another 10% or something like that with the spray sealant. All right, everyone. Thanks again for joining in. Hope to see you on the next live stream.